Hi there, folks. Andrew here at Chatfuel today. I am super excited to be chatting with Janet of GoSky AI. GoSky is one of our agency partners, and they are doing absolutely incredible work. You've probably seen from many moons ago on our blog their beauty player case study. That was one of their clients, and they had absolutely incredible, mind-blowing results. So, Janet, it's so great to chat with you today. We've met before at F8, the annual Facebook Developer Conference last year, and GoSky is doing amazing, incredible things. So great to have you here today.
Thank you, Andrew, for inviting me.
Great. So, just to provide some basic context up front for this conversation, it's not just about GoSky, but more specifically, it's about this chatbot generation competition that you've held. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the second year. You just ended the second annual contest. Is that right?
That's correct.
Great. So, yeah, we'll start again by just give us and viewers some basic background as to kind of the purpose and mission of this competition that you're hosting, and also where kind of geographically you're hosting this as well.
Sure. So we jumped into the chatbot world right after messenger chatbots become available. However, we found that there's no academic school teaching chatbot as a subject currently. And we figured education is going to play a big part at the end of the day, and everyone is going to be benefited from the chatbot, whether or not it's a business user or end user. So that's really what inspired us to create this competition at the very beginning.
Yeah, and I love that because as I was telling you a little bit before we started recording here, as a college student myself, you're working with these students to help educate them on how to create effective chatbots. And again, like I wish there was something like this where, I am in school, because I think, in the education system, at least here in the US, we have and we're learning all these things, but maybe not all of them are super practical. And I think through this competition, it's not just these students building bots and creating them for companies, which we can talk more about, but it is also part of it is kind of the lead up to the competition, which is where you guys are teaching them kind of best practices and stuff like that. So I think it's amazing that you're teaching them these very practical in-demand skills that then they can use in the marketplace, which is really exciting.
Thank you for that, for sure.
Yeah, so you gave a little bit of information about the contest. You're, teaching these students how to build bots, and then tell me a little bit more about how you are partnering them with these companies, and also kind of the process of how you go about selecting students to participate. Because to my understanding, there's 30 students that you chose to participate. So tell me a little bit about that selection process, and then, like I said, also the companies that are working with you and the students.
All right, sure. So I'll answer one by one.
Sure.
First, we received over 500 applications from undergrad and master students. We had 2 rounds of selecting process and ended up with 30 finalists into the final round. So for the first round, it's about messenger chatbot questionnaire. We asked students to choose their preferred role between chatbot, advertising, and marketing, as well as their preferred project type. And for the second round, through written test, including 2 professional questions in the 3 categories mentioned above. So that's our selecting process. And in terms of companies that we ended up working with, so we had 10 brands and enterprises across 7 industries. So brands that you all have heard of, including Vogue, Taiwan, and we have a bank, we have a mobile company, we have a shopping platform, and just different bunch of other big brands and enterprises that students would probably not have the opportunity to work with if they weren't participating in this contest.
Yeah, and I think that's just the opportunity of that alone, to work with these big enterprises and companies is super cool. Again, aside from the, prizes and everything else. So I guess let's back up a little bit just for a second here and tell me more about the kind of the timeline for this competition. So as you said, this is the second year of hosting this. And I alluded to it a little bit earlier, where you're in preparation for the competition and choosing the winners, you're teaching these students who are participating how to build bots, you're educating them on best practices. So tell me more about kind of the lead up to the competition itself, and then I guess ultimately afterwards too, as to, do these students working with these companies still end up working with them? Is this just kind of a one-off thing? So again, I guess the broader question is just give me sort of a timeline of what the preparation and results of this competition look like.
Sure, for sure. So first, start with June of this year. We started to promote about this contest and start accepting application and went through the 2 rounds of selecting process, as I mentioned earlier. And that's from June to July. And in August, we started to announce the finalists. We assigned them into different teams with the 3 category: marketing, digital ads, and chatbot, and bridge them together to talk to the brand enterprises. In September, the project started to implement into the market. The students were collecting data throughout the period and results. And October, that's when we have the big demo day for them to present their work and result in front of the judges.
And speaking of the judges, I'd really be interested to know as to kind of what criteria the judges use to select the winners, right? Because one of the big questions that we get at Chatfuel is, as I've said repeatedly throughout the interview so far, like, what are best practices? What do you see performing best? And so I'm curious to know what those metrics of success are for bots. Is it looking at, say, the number of subscribers, or just what metrics in general, or what criteria are used to judge which bot is determined to be the winner?
For sure. So there are 4 main criteria that we were looking at. First is creativity of the project. Secondly is business value. So that means how many user information that they've got throughout the period and what kind of business insight that they gain. Third is whether or not they solve the pain points for the brands and enterprise. And number 4 is how smooth the chatbot was.
I love that you mentioned the, business value as part of those criteria, because as I've said, so many times in the past when people ask, like, to me, the biggest misconception about bots is that they are, just a cool, cute thing to do. But yeah, the business value, the business proposition, however you want to say it, is super important. So I love that that's one of the criteria. So tell me, I guess you could talk just in general about kind of what types of use cases these bots were using that were built for the competition. Or I think what might be more interesting is if you talk about the kind of the bot that won the contest, the competition, and
Mhm.
what exactly that bot did and what made it successful.
Sure, for sure. So the final team that won the competition was Team Vogue Taiwan. And what did the bot do was that the student first deeply analyzed the fan page, the audience and characteristics, and they decided to use fashion as a theme to bridge the gap between the users and the brand. And combined to the fashion school theme to design the chatbot, the school named Vogue Words. And it sounds like Hogwarts from Harry Potter movie. And the student combined with our customized graphic design and customized overlay pictures to create a unique fashion school ID that has a fashion index surround with the fashion school theme and the user's interest. And from there, combined with our member get member feature and successfully expand as users share across the social media. And I guess a little more is that in the process, the student collected the interactive user information, including their age, occupation, contact, interest, living area, and such by creating the text from Chatfield. And these information become important assets for Vogue Taiwan to use in the future.
So then, in essence, among the other things you mentioned, it is almost a segmentation tool of sorts that allows the company, Vogue, to capture this data about subscribers and then follow up with them in the future. Is that accurate to say?
Absolutely, that's right.
So that's the winning bot. Tell me a little bit about some of the other industries that these bots were built for, and just some of the main use cases that you saw. Because I know at Chatfuel we talk about different use cases like lead generation, automating frequently asked questions, those sorts of things. So I guess my biggest question is, what were some of the other use cases that you saw entered into the competition?
For sure. I'll talk about several. So first we have Next Bank, which is the first only online bank in Taiwan. And for that particular bot, it provides general questionnaire, as we cannot disclose any personal information on the bot. So really, it's just like providing general information that the user wanted to ask instantly. And we have KK Day, which is a major OTA in Asia. And as well, we have Cheetah Mobile. That's a leading mobile internet company with global market coverage.
Got it. And so then within each of those categories, like the bank, you said it was a questionnaire, and then maybe I missed it, but for the other one or two that you mentioned, what were the use cases of those then? Again, was it like lead generation, product recommendation, or was it just kind of like a general bot that provided information?
I would say it's a little bit of all among all of them. Lead gen is definitely the big purpose behind all of that for sure. So they'll create interactive campaigns or use games or tools allow them to do so.
Got it. And then going back to the students who are participating, I know, earlier we were talking about how they were selected and everything. And I know I actually asked this question earlier, but it was along with like 5 other questions. But so with these students who participate, part of the goal is, helping them network with these companies that they're working with that they wouldn't meet otherwise, and, presumably getting these skills and possibly working for them. So I'm curious to know if you have any specific stories of like students who through the competition worked with one of these companies and now they're, working with them long term, or they're managing their bot or anything like that.
Sure. So I'll come back to the goal of the competition first. We have two main goals. First is to give student experience of building chatbot and plan projects in the real life career that they will face after they graduate. And second is allow brands and enterprises to see these amazing students and bridge the gap between them. And more importantly, we want to change how students think about the world and help them see how each of them can actually impact society in different ways. And come back to your question, yes. And we actually have brands that specifically said that for students who's got our chatbot generation certificate, they would have some sort of priority in certain jobs. And a few of them actually are in the interview process with the brands right now. And for us, it's GoSky. We did ask few students if they wanted to join us as intern, and two of them have become full-time just earlier this year.
That's so cool that working with Chatfuel and you guys as an agency, that you can do that. And I guess that answers another kind of more implicit question that I had earlier, which is, it's amazing that you guys are doing this, but then like, what's the actual benefit to you? Obviously, you're helping students, you're helping these companies, but what's in it for you? And part of that obviously is that you kind of have this pool of very talented people to kind of grab and snatch up yourself, which is great. One other question on the students before we move on. I read in the blog post that our content team here at Chatfuel put together that 70% of the students who were participating were women. So tell me more about the importance of including women in tech, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. So tech is normally a male-dominated industry, and we were surprised and not surprised to see more female. And we did not choose women purposely. It's a fair competition between all genders. However, in fact, that we know for Taiwanese male, they has the responsibility to serve the military. Therefore, male generally enter the job market later than female. And business competition participants are from business-related majors, and female are generally more than male in these majors. Of course, we're not always super excited to see female from industrial engineering, or other tech majors.
That's awesome, and it's really fascinating too because it's a very different picture, at least from what I see anecdotally here in the U.S. How it's very male dominated, which you say, but the fact that it's leaning female, at least in this competition, without you guys doing anything intentionally, is really really fascinating and neat. So. All of that's great. I guess two more questions here. One is, like we've talked about, this was the second year of hosting this competition. What takeaways did you have from the first year that shifted or shaped in some way the contest for the second year? In other words, what changed from the first year to the next year?
Sure. So last year when we first started the competition, we were pretty much on our own and with some of Chatfuel's help, of course. The biggest difference I would say is that last year we asked students to look for brands and enterprises themselves. And we learned that there was a communication gap between the student and the brand, as the student may not have the necessary skill or experience to do so. So this year, we decided the brands and enterprises for them. And this year, we were confident to say the competition has become the largest competition for messenger chatbot education with the business plan in Asia.
I love to hear that, because when I met you and Fash at F8, I knew you were working super hard on all of this, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So that's great. One other follow-up question on that, actually, before I go to the last question, is what was the process like for kind of communicating with and collaborating with these bigger companies like Vogue that you mentioned? Obviously, this is some huge brand, and well, you guys are doing great work, right? It's not like you're some super, prominent or well-known brand. So I guess how do you go about collaborating with these big companies and kind of making them interested, or just getting them to care about something where they're probably getting tons of these sort of collaborative requests all the time? So how do you break through that noise and really get to working with them?
For sure. So from our experience, we found that really the biggest pain point a lot of bigger brands have is to find the right talent, and they don't have the time to do so a lot of times. So they were curious to see what we could come up with and possibly find the right talent for them after the competition. So that's why they're in it, for part of the reasons as well. And through communicating process, we for sure surprised a lot of them to change the traditional insight that they had. And we have several brands that are already said that they wanted to be on board for our competition next year and even future.
Well, that is super exciting. Always great to hear that the momentum is continuing forward. And speaking of the future, like you just talked about, let me know, what are your future plans? What's on the table for the next year's competition? Obviously, you just alluded to that a little bit, but any other surprises for next year, or anything else that you can unveil at this point?
Yeah, for sure. So our goal for GoSky Chatbot Generation 2020 is to expand the competition to Southeast Asia and attract students from different diversities. We want to set our bar high and keep influencing the world and let more people know about both GoSky and Chatfuel, one region at a time.
That is amazing, Janet. And please, 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 please bring it to the US at some point, or work with someone here to expand it, because like I said, that would be, thankfully I'm in a position where I have these skills to an extent, although obviously there's always so much more to learn. But, it would benefit people here so much, because like I said, in school, sometimes learning things that aren't always applicable. It's a lot of theory, but with bots and Messenger, they're very actionable and in-demand skills that businesses can benefit from, and they want you to know. So that's great to hear all of that. Glad that things are going well with GoSky, and really excited to see what's in store for the Chatbot Generation Competition 2020. So thanks again so much. And I guess last question just in closing is let us know where people can go to find more about GoSky and this competition.
Yeah, for sure. So right now we haven't put anything up for next year's competition yet, but if anyone is interested to know more, feel free to check out our chatbot. Our page is GoSky AI Inc. And to interact with us, to reach out to us and say hi.
Great. All right, Janet, thank you again so much for taking the time today. You, Fash, and the rest of the GoSky team are doing great work. We appreciate all that you're contributing to the community and the chatbot industry in general. And good luck with the competition next year. And to everybody watching, happy botting, and thanks for watching.